Today's presentation, CIS Checklist, How to Secure macOS Like a Pro. My name's Nick Thompson. I'll be your host today. And joining me right here in the studio is Matt Woodruff, Senior Systems Engineer here at Jamf. Matt, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Nick.
Awesome. We also have a couple of folks on our chat here that will be helping us as well too, Mark and Katie. So you'll see some of them answering questions as well. Today's agenda, we're going to do just a brief overview of Jamf just to make sure everyone's on the same page. They understand who we are and what we do. Then we're going to dive into what is the CIS checklist and really why is it important for an organization. We'll discuss what it's like to use Jamf Pro to specifically secure different features inside of macOS. We'll discuss the impact on the user experience. And we'll talk about other security standards out there in the industry. And we'll wrap up with some next steps and Q&A. First, a brief overview of Jamf. For those of you who don't know us, this is our company's mission. We help organizations succeed with Apple. This is all that we do and all that we focus on. So we're solely focused on the Apple platform. And we do that with our two products, something called Jamf Now and Jamf Pro. Jamf Now is really our simplified mobile device management product. Really no IT required, ideal for very small organizations. But today's presentation is going to focus more on Jamf Pro, Apple management for IT pros. Here's some screenshots of what the products look like. It's all just web-based. You access everything in a web browser. And we here at Jamf, we help a lot of organizations. We have over 10,000 organizations that rely on us to secure their Macs and to keep them managed, including a lot of the top technology companies out there, some of the top Fortune 500 companies and most valuable brands, including a lot of schools as well, too. So with that, let's dive into our first topic here. Really, what is this CIS checklist and why is it important? Matt, let's talk about that.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. So one of the biggest things as being one of the systems engineers here at Jamf is that I have to deal a lot with the regulated environments. And that usually includes the financial, retail, healthcare, and government entities that really have these federal mandates and audit requirements required to supplement security baselines so that they are always securing their corporate data in the best way possible. Now, we're going to get to the point of understanding which one. We've got the CIS, Center for Internet Security, as well as DISA and the STIG. We want to acknowledge today that we are very well aware of and can assist with the DISA STIG implementation that usually evolves around the Department of Defense here in the United States. And that is mainly focused for DoD and military installations, but instead, the Center for Internet Security has allowed all of us this possibility of seeing and reviewing what type of benchmarks they recommend. With Center for Internet Security, they have also, I'm going to state CIS from this point forward, so you'll find that the CIS standards are really great for diving into the technical difficulties that evolve around particularly Apple products, and the reason why Jamf is presenting this today. The CIS benchmarks are a collection by an international audience of InfoSec as well as cybersecurity experts for making sure that the configuration in your regulated environments are up to date and fully secured so that no data leaks would occur in your environment. Here's what's great about the CIS benchmark and the reason why we have created this webinar today. They are very responsive to Apple's updates. As you all are aware, Apple is very quick to release OS updates every year. Jamf knows that for our zero-day support. So in response to that, you need to have a security benchmark or baseline, as we call it, to be able to know what within this new operating system do I need to secure for my environment. especially PCI, PHI, any of those government standards like FSMA that you might need to review. The next thing is it's super comprehensive. It has almost every detail of possible data leak reviewed for each operating system. And obviously the third bullet point is it's free. It's absolutely great to have this resource. You can go onto the CIS website and be able to review this for free. And as you can see, it covers iOS and macOS. Now, you might be trying to understand, CIS, the benchmark is there, but why is it there? Like, what are the pieces that would help me understand why I need to implement the CIS benchmark? Well, here are some 4 examples out of 80-something that exist out there for enforcement or possibly the disablement of certain settings within the environment that might help you alleviate corporate espionage or any type of data leakage that might occur either physically or across the wire. So we have the enforcement and reporting on gatekeeper settings. This is a particular setting for macOS in making sure that no additional installations occur outside of Mac app stores, as well as any identified developers that Apple has helped identify with their developer program. And then the other settings, firewall stealth mode, printer sharing, remote management settings. These are all things that you not only either need to control, but you need to report on it as well. And that's what the CIS benchmark is trying to help all of us understand for the macOS platform as well as iOS. Now, with Jamf and the CIS benchmark, there's multiple components of sources and projects for you to review how to make this successful for your environment. We have GitHub projects out there that other individuals in the healthcare, financial, even government agencies that have put together scripts and policies and made them, including extension attributes, which I'll get to in a moment. But this is the ability for you to understand how to implement this because it is an industry standard out there. And the point of today's discussion as well is Jamf Professional Services. What we are thankful for is an incredibly highly intelligent engineers on our professional services team that help you implement this standard in a very easy and practical way, not only through engagements, but thankfully through their GitHub location. Now that we've talked about why the CIS benchmark, we'll transition into understanding what would it look like to secure the macOS? What are the possibilities that exist? As you can see here within the macOS platform, you have what we see right now is MDM profiles. Please understand mobile device management profiles is something Apple is building out as a framework within the operating system that helps you enforce certain management structures. With mobile device management, there's quite a few pieces of built-in management frameworks that is inherent within macOS and has been built into macOS since around 10.6 and then iOS platforms as well. And these are just very specific settings for making sure that you can enforce a baseline on the computer and user platform. But again, it's very specific. And these are XML values that you send out. And with these configuration profiles, it could cover multiple different things. As you can see displayed here, there's different facets that allow you to build configuration profiles for specific pieces. But what we're also identifying here today is the reason why Jamf is so successful with this is this ability for a Jamf agent to be installed at the root level of the hard drive that gives you this access of building in both management admin accounts that can be hidden to the end user that allow you to execute different things within macOS and run scripts at the root level, making sure that your enforcement of your security baseline is always identified, audited, and reported on. Please be aware, this binary is auto-installed after enrollment, whether that be Apple's DEP program, imaging, or even possibly a user-initiated enrollment. So that's a great way of enrolling these Macs into this environment. The Jamf agent has quite a number of configuration abilities that it completes for the macOS. The two big ones that we're going to focus on today is the enforcement of file vault and running scripts. So as you start to review the CIS benchmark and possibly enforcing any other security baseline, you'll find file vault is one of those full disk encryption solutions that is FIPS validated, by the way, that allows you to get and push institutional recovery keys and escrow individual recovery keys into the Jamf Pro solution. And then it's the running of scripts. So there's lots of different scripts that can make this up to make it solution successful. So Jamf offers, as a summation, the ability for you to have an MDM and all the different MDM solutions and configuration profiles combined together with the Jamf agent to make this successful. There are some additional pieces that we'd like to highlight at this moment, and that is MDM commands. These are additional MDM commands that your InfoSec team is certainly going to want to know about. The ability to remotely lock a Mac or remotely wipe a Mac, especially in those scenarios where that disgruntled employee leaves and InfoSec needs a very quick way of remotely wiping the device. So these MDM commands are pre-built into the Jamf Pro server, giving you that ability on both Macs and iOS. And with iOS, it greatly expands. It's this concept that not only do you want to lock and wipe an iOS device, you might want to clear a passcode because they forgot it. You might want to enable loss mode so that you can gain those GPS tracking capabilities of that device no matter where it's located. What we're going to do here in just a few screenshots is show you Jamf Pro and screenshots within it of some of the feature sets so that you can understand how our user interface looks. We have this ability to restrict particular consumer features of the macOS. And for our discussion today in talking about the CIS benchmark, we have iCloud as one of those features that you've got to monitor for your environment, especially for InfoSec. And that is, you don't want your corporate data being pushed up to a cloud service that you might not have control over. Totally up to you and whether or not you want to audit this, but as you can see on the screen, this is certainly something that you can use Jamf Pro to control the allow or disallowing of iCloud, documents and settings, keychains, or any other of their features. There's also what I described earlier around Gatekeeper and being able to control whether or not the Mac App Store and identified developers by the Apple Developer Program is allowed to be installed on your Macs in your environment. Again, another CIS checkbox that you need to make sure and check for your environment. Now, this screen slightly changes a little bit because we are no longer looking at an MDM profile and what you can push out with MDM profiles. Instead, this screen is showing you what the Jamf binary can do with a policy. Policies are action items. With these action items, we're able to take action on implementing a corporate file vault configuration down to the device, allowing us to push institutional recovery keys and escrow all those individual recovery keys into our solution. So that is absolutely possible with Jamf policies with the Jamf Pro server. And then here we have the restriction of apps. Another key feature that allows us to constantly monitor what Unix processes are running on the device and dictate whether or not you want to kill those processes immediately, possibly restrict them, and make sure that they never run in your environment. And what's great is the Jamf binary can actually do this whether they're on network or off network. They can be constantly monitoring that.
Hey, Matt, and I know a lot of our customers have also used this in the past to restrict people going from one major macOS version to the next major macOS version. How do some of our customers accomplish that?
Absolutely. So that's a great point of why this feature is very critical for a corporate environment is this ability of restricting the next macOS from being installed on the device. So at all times, let's say, for example, macOS Sierra got released last year. With that release, many of you had not validated that it would work for your environment. So you might want to restrict it from your end users being able to run it. Well, that's another feature of what the Jamf agent can complete on a macOS device is the restriction of the install macOS Sierra app from ever running in the first place, giving them a very nice dialogue on their end user devices, just stating it's not compliant with our environment today. Now that we've talked about some of the feature sets of what you would do to secure macOS, obviously many of you, possibly being IT admins, are trying to understand just how much does this mean it's adding to my plate. I've already got tons of IT projects I'm currently working on, so what do I need to do to make this successful? Well, we would recommend, given our stance in the market as being experts for the Apple device platform and implementing these security baselines, we would state to understand some assembly is required. You'll find that an organizational evaluation is going to be needed between your InfoSec department, your CISO, any C-level staff, and your IT department to all gather together to understand what of the CIS benchmark do I want to implement? What is needed for our auditing purposes to make sure and get through that? So once you've gathered together that those abilities and what settings you're wanting to implement, then you can use Jamf Pro to possibly review how does this look? How is it going to impact our end users so that we know, are they going to stay productive in our environment or not? Then as soon as you gather those results, guess what? You get to go and review it once again. What was the results? How do we evaluate this and still stay secure in making sure our corporate data stays internal? Now, once all of that is completed, then you identify what are the remediation steps going to look like for our organization. Do we enforce remediation of all of these settings, or do we do something about the end user's device if they ever go out of compliance? So all of that is part of understanding what your next steps are going to be for implementing this. Once you get to that point, please understand it is a minimal footprint for your IT admins. 3 policies that implement 3 scripts with what's also called extension attributes. There's 2 of them from a reporting structure that needs to be completed. So I think everyone should probably understand at this point, this is the Jamf Pro server, what these policies look like, and if you can see, each one of them are .sh. These are shell scripts that are going to be completed on each of your Macs that you have in your environment. The first one is setting your organizational priorities. This is after those meetings with your InfoSec department, and in the government space, it's meeting with your AOs to understand what is the security baseline that we are going to implement. How do we set those priorities to make sure that they work for our environment? And then we're going to execute that on every computer at least once so that everyone in my organization has the predefined set of priorities for this organization to be compliant. Then you need to audit. Are these computers currently within compliance or not? That's what this second shell script does in making sure that every week for our setup, it's going to be reviewing the auditing, and it occurs during the check-in process. Please understand that with each one of these executions, you see a frequency of either once per computer, once every week, and once every week. This can always be increased to either once a day or even every 6 hours, whatever you want to do for a frequency standpoint, to make sure that from an audit standpoint, you've got all the correct reporting structures built in. And then, as you can see, the very last policy is where we're going to take action on it. Again, this is all coming from your discussions with InfoSec. How do we remediate this? How do we make sure and make it right? And the wonderful team, if you can see on the right-hand panel of this screen, there's a people area and K English 6. That's Katie English. She's one of the ones that are answering your questions in the Q&A portion today. She's incredibly intelligent about building all of this together, and she was able to complete the CIS standard benchmark for macOS Sierra last night. So please go to our GitHub, obtain that, and review that. But understand the Jamf Professional Services team has a standard statement of work that they can help you implement this across your entire organization. So at this time, I'm going to ask that you reach out to Jamf at any moment, your Jamf sales team or your Jamf support team, in recognizing that we can assist you in implementing these settings. Now, we've talked about why secure macOS and how to do it with CIS benchmark. What's the impact for admins? Now you might be asking questions about what is the impact to users? What does it look like? Do they even recognize it? We are thankful to tell you that the footprint from a day-to-day standpoint extremely minimal. The Jamf agent is going to be executing these scripts on the frequency that you've defined. And for our examples that we've seen on the screen today, it's once per week. And all they do is implement a couple of text files that get placed at the root level of the computer so that you have an audit and a security score always available on the device, so that you can also obtain these and put them into a log aggregation tool, whatever you need for your environment, to make sure that your users are not impacted from a day-to-day standpoint on their macOS. Now, one of the last pieces that I'll talk about before Nick gets up is this idea that with Jamf being the Apple experts, we also understand that there are multiple additional security baselines and compliances that are needing to be implemented, enforced, reviewed, and we have security experts available to make sure that whether you're in the U.S. and in the government space, you've got CDM, FISMA, FIPS, SCAP that all need to be reviewed, implemented, and reported on. And then in the PHI in the healthcare industry, HIPAA, High Trust is also portions that you're needing to review or report on. PCI for the finance and retail industries, and SOC 2 from an additional standpoint. Now, as you can see, the flexible framework exists for Jamf to complete this and be successful for all Apple device management. It's very easy now to go into Jamf Pro server, click on the right settings, enable, disable what you need to, and then wirelessly deploy and report on your entire Apple fleet from one server. So thank you.
Excellent. So what a great summary of everything that you can do here in Jamf Pro, and implementing it with the CIS checklist. So just a quick recap. I want to cover some of the different things that, of course, Jamf Pro can do outside of just security controls. For those of you not familiar, of course, it can help you deploy your Macs, whether that's via zero-touch deployments thanks to DEP or through traditional imaging workflows. You then then can configure everything, make sure the Macs have the right apps on them, and then you can gather extensive inventory data and take action on that, which is what we really cover today in the security controls. And of course, Jamf Pro also includes a really great self-service app that lets you as IT populate it with the different resources that your employees need for them to be successful. Some details on hosting. A lot of people ask us this. So how is this hosted? Well, you can either host it in the cloud or on-premise. We've got data centers in both North America and EU. And frankly, if you go with the cloud, it's awesome. It's easy. Everything's automatic whenever we come out with updates. And we use AWS as our infrastructure. A little side note for anyone in government, cloud is not FedRAMP compliant. So you might want to then rely on-premise, which is really just a lightweight server. You can virtualize this thing if you want. It runs on Linux, Windows, or a macOS server. And there's really three components to it. It's just a MySQL database and a Tomcat and a Tomcat server in Java. And you can have very flexible distribution points. You should also know, of course, we fit into all the different things that Apple's doing. And we sort of glossed over some of these technologies, but if you've heard these out there before, we, of course, integrate with them. Apple Push Notification Service, which really establishes that trust between the Jamf server and all of your clients. DEP for that zero-touch deployment, making it so easy to hand a Mac to your employees, have them open it up, and really have it be set up as they walk through that setup assistant, and volume purchase program to purchase and license apps in bulk. If you're a school, Apple rolls in DEP and VPP into a new program called Apple School Manager.
And Nick, that's correct. One of the big things about DEP is to understand with regulated environments is this idea that you can know how you can enforce management on any of your device. Apple's device enrollment program is a central piece that Apple is building out to make sure that as your end users are opening these new devices out of the box and they're going through that setup assistant screen, you're going to have management from that point forward. So what's great is you have the trust of Apple's supplementing products into your environment, and then you're enforcing management down on the device. So it's another piece on the audit checklist for your compliancy.
Great point. And lastly, we also integrate with a lot of great third-party tools. We at Jamf obviously know that we're not standalone and we fit into a much larger ecosystem. We really believe in the power of and here. So, we work with your directory services that you might have, any LDAP service. We work with single sign-on providers that you might have too. If you're using something like SCCM right now to manage your PCs, you actually share inventory data from Jamf into SCCM. We work with a lot of the Cisco products that are out there, from Cisco ICE to their new Fastlane for mobile. And we've got a great new tool in the ServiceNow App Store that lets you share macOS inventory data into ServiceNow. And if you've got other great projects out there that you want to integrate with, well, we have a really extensible API as well, too. So to wrap it up here, some next steps. If this is something that you are interested in, reach out to us. Go to jamf.com and click on the little chat with us button. You can start talking to our sales and engineer folks across the globe to really tailor this for your specific environment. We've got a bunch of other webinars on our website too. So if you want to dive deeper into, say, iOS management or into DEP, you can learn about that. And frankly, I think this is the coolest thing that we have here, Jamf Nation. This is a free online forum, a community of over 40,000 Apple IT admins, just sharing their best practices about managing Apple. Worth checking it out and just seeing the discussion online as well, too.